Captain Kimday floated in the silence of space, staring at the massive ship that drifted before them like a ghost from another time. The vessel was enormous, easily 10 times the size of his salvage ship, but it showed no signs of life. Dark metal hull was covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change when he looked at them directly. "Captain, are you seeing this?" Lena's voice crackled through the comm system. She was his best engineer, and her voice carried a mix of excitement and fear that made Kim's stomach tighten. "See it?" Kim replied, adjusting his helmet's display. "Run a full scan. Want to know everything about that ship before we get closer." Horizon's Edge was a small salvage vessel, designed for recovering lost cargo and abandoned satellites. Kim and his crew of 12 made their living collecting space junk and selling it to the highest bidder. They had been working the Outer Rim for 3 months, hoping to find something valuable enough to pay off their ship's debt. This was not what they had expected to find. Parkman pushed himself up from his console, his face pale behind his helmet. "Visser, Captain, the ship is old. Really old. The metal composition doesn't match anything in our databases. Some of these elements, I don't think they exist naturally in our galaxy." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. How old are we talking about? Millions of years, maybe tens of millions. But here's the strange part. There's still power running through the ship. Faint, but it's there. The crew exchanged nervous glances. A ship that old should be dead metal floating in space, not showing any signs of active systems. Captain Osu called out from the pilot's seat. "We're getting some kind of signal from the ship. It's not radio or any communication method. No, it's like it's trying to talk to us." Kim made his decision. "Nah, Min, you're with me. The rest of you monitor from here. If anything goes wrong, you jump to hyperspace and report back to Earth." The boarding pod was cramped with 3 people in full spacesuits. As they approached the alien ship, Kim could see that it was even more impressive up close. The hull was smooth and unmarked by the usual wear of space travel. It looked like it had been built yesterday, not millions of years ago. They found an opening that seemed to recognize their approach. The ship's airlock opened without any input from them, revealing a corridor filled with soft blue light. "Atmosphere is breathable," Na reported, checking her readings. "Temperature is perfect for humans. It's almost like the ship is adjusting itself for us." They stepped inside, and Kim felt like he was walking through a dream. The corridors were tall and wide, clearly built for beings larger than humans. The walls were covered in the same shifting symbols they had seen on the outside, but now they seemed to pulse with a gentle rhythm, like a heartbeat. "This way," Min said, pointing down a corridor that seemed to glow brighter than the others. "Something's calling us forward." They walked for what felt like hours, though Kim's suit chronometer showed only 20 minutes had passed. The ship felt alive around them, humming with an energy that made his skin tingle. Finally, they reached a large circular chamber with a raised platform in the center. As they approached the platform, the room suddenly filled with light. A figure appeared before them, tall and graceful, with features that seemed both alien and familiar. It was clearly a hologram, but so detailed that Kim could see individual strands of what looked like hair. "Welcome, young ones," the figure said. And Kim was shocked to hear it speaking perfect Korean. "I am the last echo of the architects. I have been waiting for you," Kim asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "We were the gardeners of this galaxy," the figure replied. "For millions of years, we planted the seeds of life on countless worlds. We watched over young species, guiding them toward wisdom and peace. We were the protectors of all that lives and grows." Na stepped forward, her scientific curiosity overcoming her fear.
"What happened to you?"
The figure's expression grew sad. "We fought a war against an enemy that consumes everything it touches. The Devourers came from the space between galaxies, eating stars and planets, leaving nothing but emptiness behind. We held them back for countless ages, but we grew tired. We grew old. The last of us fell in battle 3,000 years ago." The figure continued, "But before we died, we made preparations. We studied the young species of this galaxy, looking for those who might carry on our mission. We found you." Kim felt his heart racing. Us, humans. You have the strength we need. You fight for each other, even when the odds are impossible. You protect the weak, even when it costs you everything. You adapt and survive in ways that amaze us. You are what we were long ago. The chamber filled with images of space battles, of creatures made of darkness consuming entire solar systems. Kim watched in horror as civilizations died, their worlds turning to dust. The Devourers are returning, the figure said. They sleep now, but they will wake soon. When they do, someone must stand against them. Someone must carry the torch. We can no longer bear. Why us? Parkman asked. We're just salvagers. We're nobody special. The figure smiled, and for a moment Kim saw something deeply human in its alien features. That is exactly why you are special. You do not seek glory or power. You simply do what needs to be done. The hologram began to fade. The knowledge you need is in this ship's computers. The weapons, the technology, the history of our war. It is all here, waiting for you. Remember, young Guardians, the greatest weapon is not made of metal or energy. It is the choice to stand up when everything seems lost. As the figure disappeared, Kim felt the weight of the universe settling on his shoulders. They had come looking for salvage, but they had found something much more valuable and terrifying. They had found their destiny. Admiral Choi Wan stood at the huge window of Earth's space station, watching the stars that had once seemed so peaceful. 2 weeks had passed since Captain Kim's discovery, and the world had changed forever. The news was spreading through every government, every military base, every scientific facility on Earth. Humanity had inherited a war they never asked for. Sir, the emergency council is ready, said his assistant commander Yoon Jia. She looked tired. Like everyone else who had been working around the clock since the alien ship arrived at Earth, Choi walked into the meeting room where the most powerful people on Earth were gathered. Presidents, generals, scientists, and engineers filled the seats around the massive table. At the head sat Captain Kim, still wearing his simple salvage uniform, looking uncomfortable among all the important officials. Show them the recording again, Choi ordered. The lights dimmed, and the holographic message from the architect played once more, even after seeing it dozens of times. The room fell silent when the alien spoke about the Devourers and humanity's new role as protectors of the galaxy. This is insane, said General Park from the Korean military. We can barely defend our own planet, and now we're supposed to protect the entire galaxy. The technology is real, interrupted Dr. Han Sol, the lead scientist who had been studying. The architect's ship. We've confirmed everything. The star charts, the weapon designs, the historical records. It's all genuine. And the threat is real, too. As if summoned by her words, the communication system suddenly came alive. Warning lights flashed as emergency signals flooded in from the deep space monitoring stations. Admiral, we're receiving distress calls from the Kepler 442 system, reported the communications officer. His voice was shaking. 3 planets. They're gone. The signals just stopped. The room erupted in chaos. People shouted questions, demanded answers, but Choi raised his hand for silence. Show us the data. The holographic display changed to show the Kepler 442 system. Where 3 inhabited worlds had been just hours before, there was now only empty space. No debris, no radiation, nothing. It was as if the planets had simply been erased from existence. The Devourers have awakened, Kim said quietly, just like the architect warned us. Dr. Han Sol stood up, her face pale but determined. We've been working on integrating the architect technology with our ships. The bioneural interfaces can connect with human minds, but the process is dangerous. We need volunteers who are willing to risk their lives. I'll do it, Kim said immediately. My crew and I have already been exposed to their technology. We understand the risks better than anyone. Li Na, who had been quiet until now, spoke up. The engineering modifications will take months. We need to retrofit our entire fleet with architect systems. But even then, we don't know if we can master their technology in time. We don't have months, Admiral Choi said grimly. The monitoring stations are picking up more signals. The Devourers are moving toward inhabited systems. At their current speed, they'll reach the outer colonies within weeks. President Moonkung, who had been listening carefully, finally spoke. What are our options? Can we negotiate with these creatures? The architects tried for millions of years, Kim replied. Devourers don't negotiate. They don't communicate. They only consume. Everything they touch turns to nothing. Then we fight, said General Park. We mobilize every ship, every weapon, every soldier we have. With what? Asked Dr. Hansol. Our conventional weapons are useless against beings that exist partially outside normal space. We need the architect. Technology, but we need time to learn how to use it. We also need allies, added Commander Yunjia. The architect records showed dozens of species throughout the galaxy. If we can contact them, maybe we can build a coalition. Admiral Choi looked around the room at the faces of Earth's leaders. Some looked scared, others angry, but all of them were beginning to understand the magnitude of what they faced. Let me make this clear, he said. We're talking about taking responsibility for protecting not just Earth, but every living world. In the galaxy, we're talking about a war that could last centuries. Are we really prepared for that? We don't have a choice, Kim said simply. The Devourers won't stop with other worlds. Eventually they'll come for Earth too. The only question is whether. We fight them now, when we might have allies, or later, when we're alone. The room fell silent as everyone considered his words. Finally, President Moon stood up. 3 days ago, we were a small planet orbiting an ordinary star. Today, we discover we're the inheritors of a cosmic responsibility. Tomorrow, we begin preparing for a war that will determine the fate of all life in the galaxy. She looked around. The room, meeting each person's eyes. We never asked for this burden. But the universe has chosen us, and we will not let it down. We will protect the innocent. We will stand against the darkness. We'll carry the torch that the architects have passed to us. All in favor of mobilizing Earth's resources for the defense of the galaxy? She asked. Every hand in the room rose as the meeting broke up and people rushed to begin preparations. Kim stood alone at the window, looking out at the stars. Lena joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. Doing the right thing? She asked. I don't know, Kim replied honestly. But it's the only thing we can do. The architects believed in us. Now we have to believe in ourselves. In the distance, the first ships were already being prepared for modification. Humanity was about to discover just how far they were willing to go to protect the galaxy that had become their responsibility. The torch had been passed and there was no going back. Captain Kim Dae floated in the command chair of his upgraded ship, the New Dawn watching the enemy approach through the viewing screen. 6 months had passed since Earth accepted its role as galactic protector, and this was their first real battle against the Devourers. His fleet of 20 modified ships hung in space near the Proxima Centauri system, waiting for the enemy that had already consumed to nearby worlds. Captain, the Devourers are coming out of hyperspace, reported Lieutenant Osu from the pilot's seat. Her voice was steady, but Kim could see her hands shaking slightly on the controls. The enemy ships appeared like shadows against the stars. They were not built like normal spacecraft. Instead, they seemed to be made of flowing darkness that moved like living things. Tendrils of black energy reached out from their hulls, and Kim felt a chill as he realized these creatures were nothing. Like the pirates and raiders humanity had fought before. All ships, attack formation, Kim ordered. Remember your training. Stay together and follow the battle plan. The human fleet moved forward, their weapons charged with architect energy. The modifications to their ships had taken months to complete, and many crew members still struggled with the alien technology. Bioneural interfaces allowed them to control the advanced systems with their thoughts, but the process was exhausting, and sometimes painful. Firing main weapons called out Commander Park Jun from the destroyer Soul's Pride. Beams of blue energy lanced out toward the Devourer ships, striking them directly. For a moment, Kim felt hope the weapons were working. Then the Devourers moved. They shifted in ways that hurt to watch, sliding between dimensions like ghosts. The human weapons passed through them harmlessly, hitting nothing but empty space. Before the fleet could react, enemies struck back. Dark tentacles of energy reached out from the Devourer ships, wrapping around the human vessels like hungry snakes. The Soul's Pride was caught first, its shields failing instantly as the alien energy began eating through its hull. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Kim shouted, but it was too late. The enemy moved as one mind, anticipating every human tactic before it could be executed. They knew exactly where each ship would turn, exactly when the weapons would fire. "Captain, they're predicting our movements perfectly," Lina reported from the engineering station. "It's like they can read our minds." Kim watched in horror as 3 more ships were caught by the dark energy. The crews had no time to escape. The Devourers consumed ship and crew alike, leaving nothing behind but empty space. "Fall back," he ordered. "All ships, retreat to safe distance." But even as the human fleet tried to escape, the Devourers pursued them with perfect coordination. They moved like a single organism, each ship supporting the others in a deadly dance. That left no room for error. Then something unexpected happened. Lieutenant Osu, terrified by the sight of the enemy closing in, panicked. Instead of following the retreat plan, she jerked the controls hard to the left, sending the New Dawn spinning wildly off course. For a moment, Kim was furious. The rookie pilot had broken formation and put the entire ship at risk. But then he noticed something strange. The Devourer ships had faltered. Their perfect coordination was broken, and they seemed confused by the completely irrational maneuver. "That's it," Kim said, his mind racing. "They can't predict chaos. They can read our plans, our tactics, our logical decisions. But they can't understand pure human emotion." Over the next few weeks, Kim and his surviving crews worked with refugee species from destroyed worlds. The Chitauri, insect-like beings who communicated through pheromones, taught them about the Devourer's hive mind. The Veltar, crystalline creatures who thought in mathematical patterns, helped them understand the enemy's weaknesses. "The Devourers are connected," explained Veltar, scientist Crystal Singer of Truth, through a translation device. "They share one mind across all their forms. This makes them powerful, but also predictable. They cannot understand individual chaos." Lieutenant Kang Ho, a young tactical officer, came up with the first breakthrough. "What if we deliberately make our attacks random, not just unpredictable, but actually chaotic?" They called it the Madness Doctrine, instead of carefully planned. Battle formations, human ships would attack in completely random patterns. Pilots were encouraged to follow their instincts, to act on emotion rather than logic. Engineer Song Ra developed another innovation. "If emotions confuse them, let's give them more emotions than they can handle," she said, working on a new device. "We can amplify human feelings and broadcast them as psychic interference." The first test of the emotion amplifier was during a small skirmish near the Vega system. Song Ra set the device to broadcast the fear, anger, and determination of the human crew. The effect on the Devourers was immediate. Their ships began moving erratically, their coordination broken by the chaos of human emotions. "It's working," Kim reported back to Earth. "They can't process our feelings. When we act on pure emotion, they can't predict what we'll do." But the cost was high. Many human crews found the emotional broadcasting exhausting, as some pilots became so overwhelmed by their own amplified feelings that they couldn't function. Others became addicted to the intensity, taking dangerous risks in battle. "We're learning," Kim told Admiral Choi during one of their regular communications. "We're learning through pain. Every battle teaches us something new about the enemy, but it also costs us ships and lives." The war against the Devourers had become a strange conflict where humanity's greatest weakness, their chaotic, emotional nature, had become their greatest strength. But Kim knew they were still losing more battles than they won. "Keep learning," Admiral Choi replied. "Find their weakness. Because if we can't stop them soon, there won't be any galaxy left to protect." As Kim looked out at the stars, he wondered how many more lessons they would have to learn before they could truly fight back against the darkness that was consuming everything they held dear. Admiral Kim Dae stood on the bridge of the massive battleship Unity, watching the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepare for what might be their final battle. 2 years had passed since the war began, and the galaxy was losing. Despite their tactical breakthroughs, the Devourers continued to consume world after world, growing stronger with each victory. "Admiral," The coalition fleet is ready, reported Commander Yunjia. Around them, ships from 47 different species hung in space like a metal constellation. The insect-like Chitauri had brought their hive ships. The crystal beings called Veltar had contributed their energy vessels, and dozens of other races had sent whatever they could spare. But everyone knew the plan's success depended on humanity's unique ability to create chaos. Dr. Han Sol, give me the final report on the Nexus, Kim ordered. The scientist's hologram appeared on the bridge, transmitting from the research vessel Discovery. The Nexus is their central coordination hub, she explained. It's a massive structure, larger than Earth's moon, that connects every devourer across the galaxy. Destroy it, and their hive mind will collapse. The problem is getting there, added Chief Engineer Song Ra. The Nexus is protected by thousands of Devourer ships, and it exists partially outside normal space. Our weapons can't touch it from the outside. Kim nodded grimly. They had known this moment would come. The suicide mission volunteers. Commander Lena stepped forward, her face calm but determined. 12 ships, sir. All volunteers. Will pilot the modified architect vessel. Last hope directly into the Nexus core and activate the quantum destabilizer from inside. Kim felt his heart break as he looked at his old friend. Lena had been with him since the beginning, from their first discovery of the architect's ship to this final desperate gambit. She had volunteered to lead the mission knowing she would never return. The destabilizer will create a chain reaction, Dr. Han Sol continued. But someone has to stay inside the Nexus to manually activate it. The quantum interference means we can't trigger it remotely. I understand, Lena said simply. We all do. Standing beside her were 11 other officers who had accepted the same fate. Captain Parkman, who had been on the original salvage. Mission Lieutenant Osu, who had discovered the power of chaos in their first battle. Engineer Kong Ho, who had helped develop their emotional warfare tactics. Each of them had made peace with their decision. The fleet will create a distraction, Kim explained. We'll hit them with everything we have, conventional weapons, emotional broadcasting, chaos tactics. While they're focused on us, the last hope will slip through their defenses. Sir, incoming transmission from the Devourer fleet, reported the communications officer. They're trying to communicate. The main screen flickered, showing the image of a Devourer, the first time anyone had seen one clearly. It was a creature of living shadow, constantly shifting between forms, with eyes like black holes. We know what you plan, it spoke, its voice like the sound of dying stars. You cannot stop the hunger. We have consumed 1,000 galaxies. Your resistance is meaningless. Kim stepped forward, his jaw set with determination. Maybe, but we're going to try anyway. That's what humans do. The creature seemed almost amused. Your species fascinates us. So much chaos, so much emotion. When we consume you, we will finally understand what drives you to fight the inevitable. You'll never understand, Kim replied, because you'll be dead. The transmission cut off, and the battle began. The coalition fleet attacked with everything. They had human ships broadcast waves of pure emotion, fear, anger, love, creating psychic storms that disrupted the Devourer coordination. Chitauri vessels released clouds of confusion pheromones, while Veltar ships generated mathematical paradoxes. That hurt the enemy's logical minds. The space around the assess became a chaos of light and shadow as thousands of ships clashed. Kim watched his tactical display, seeing friendly signals disappear one by one as ships were consumed by the hungry darkness. Lena, you're clear, he transmitted. The path is open. The last hope was a small ship built from architect technology and human engineering. It looked fragile compared to the massive Devourer vessels, but it carried the most important cargo in the galaxy. The quantum destabilizer that could end the war. Kim watched on his screen as the ship slipped through the chaos of battle, avoiding the major conflicts, while his fleet sacrificed itself to keep the enemy distracted. Several times, Devourer ships moved to intercept, but human pilots threw themselves between the enemy and the last hope, buying precious seconds with their lives. We're inside the Nexus. Lena's voice came through the comm system. distorted. By the strange energies around the massive structure, beginning final approach to the core, Kim could see the last hope on his sensors, a tiny dot moving through the heart of the enemy's greatest weapon. The nexus was vast beyond imagination, filled with corridors and chambers that stretched for kilometers in every direction. "Quantum destabilizer is armed," Li Na reported. "Kim, tell my family I died fighting for something that mattered." "Will," Kim promised, his voice thick with emotion. "For all the worlds that were lost," Lena said, her voice calm and clear, "and for all the worlds that will be saved, this is our mission now." The explosion that followed was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. The Nexus tore itself apart as the quantum destabilizer created a cascade failure in its reality-bending structure. The light was visible across 3 star systems, and when it faded, the perfect coordination of the Devourer fleet was gone. For the first time in the war, the enemy was vulnerable. Kim watched as confused Devourer ships began attacking each other. Their hive minds severed, Coalition fleet pressed their advantage, destroying the leaderless enemies with tactics that would have been impossible before. The tide of war had finally turned. But the cost was almost too much to bear. Admiral Kim Dae stood in the large circular chamber of the new Galactic Protectorate headquarters, watching ships from dozens of worlds dock at the massive space station. 5 years had passed since the destruction of the Nexus, and the galaxy was finally at peace. The scattered Devourer remnants had been hunted down and contained. Their threat ended forever. "Admiral, the Veltar delegation has arrived for the terraforming approval meeting," announced Commander Yunjaya, now his chief of staff. She carried a datapad filled with requests from species across the galaxy, all seeking human guidance. For their various projects, Kim nodded, still getting used to his new role. The other species had not chosen humans as their leaders because they wanted to be ruled. Instead, they looked to humanity as protectors who had proven themselves worthy of the Architect legacy. It was a responsibility that weighed heavily on his shoulders every day. "What's the situation with the Kepler system?" he asked. "The Chitauri have successfully established 3 new colonies there," Yoon replied. "They're requesting permission to begin mining operations on the outer planets. Dr. Songra has already approved the environmental impact studies." Dr. Songra had become head of the Galactic Technology Council, working to ensure that the advanced architect technology was used wisely. She had established strict rules about how the powerful weapons and tools could be shared, always making sure that no single species became too dominant. "We guide without controlling," she often said. "Protect without dominating." Kim walked to the memorial wall that dominated one side of the chamber. Thousands of names were etched into the black stone, representing all who had died in the war against the Devourers. To the top, in letters of gold, was Li Na's name, along with the words she had spoken before her final mission: "This is our mission now." "Sir, there's a situation developing in the Andromeda sector," reported Lieutenant Osu, now a senior officer responsible for monitoring galactic security. "The Zephyrians are having a territorial dispute with the aquatic builders.
Both sides
Are requesting mediation." Kim sighed. This was the part of the job he found most challenging. The galaxy was full of different species with different needs, different cultures, different ways of thinking. Keeping peace between them all required constant attention and careful diplomacy. "Schedule a meeting with both delegations," he decided. "We'll hear both sides and find a solution that works for everyone." As he spoke, Captain Parkman entered the chamber. He was one of the few survivors from the original salvage mission that had started everything. Now he served as the commander of the Guardian Fleet, the military force that protected the galaxy from any threats that might arise. "Kim, we've got a problem," Park said, his expression serious. "Long-range sensors have detected something unusual at the edge of the galaxy. It's not Devourers, but it's definitely not natural." Kim felt his stomach tighten. "Show me." They moved to the main control center, where a large holographic display showed the galaxy in 3 dimensions. At the very edge, a small red dot pulsed. "With an unknown energy signature, it appeared 3 days ago," Park explained. "Whatever it is, it's big. About the size of a small moon, and it's moving toward inhabited space. Could it be another species?" Kim asked. Maybe, Park replied, but the energy readings don't match anything in our databases. It could be refugees from another galaxy. Or it could be something else entirely. Kim studied the display, remembering the words of the architect hologram from so long ago. The universe was vast and full of unknowns. Just because they had defeated the Devourers didn't mean there weren't other threats out there. Prepare a first contact team, he decided, but keep the Guardian fleet on standby. We'll approach peacefully, but we'll be ready for anything. As the meeting broke up and people went to their various duties, Kim found himself alone with his thoughts. The galaxy was peaceful now, but it was a peace that required constant vigilance. Every day brought new challenges, new decisions, new responsibilities. He thought about the simple salvage crew he had once been, working the outer rim and worrying about nothing more than finding enough valuable junk to pay their bills. Those days seemed like a lifetime ago, when his biggest concern was whether they could afford fuel for their next trip. "Do you ever miss it?" asked a familiar voice behind him. Kim turned to see Dr. Hansol, now the head of the Galactic Science Council. She had been studying the architect technology for years, learning its secrets and teaching others how to use it responsibly. "Miss what?" he asked. "The simple life. When we were just salvagers, before we knew about all of this." Kim considered the question carefully. Sometimes he admitted, "But then I think about all the worlds we've saved, all the species that are free to live and grow because we chose to fight. I think about Lina and all the others who died to protect the galaxy. How can I miss the past when their sacrifice gave us this future?" Han Sol nodded, understanding in her eyes. The architects chose well. Humanity wasn't ready for this responsibility when they first started watching us, but we grew into it. "We're still growing," Kim replied. "Every day we learn something new about what it means to be guardians." As he looked out at the stars, Kim saw ships from dozens of species working together, exploring new worlds, building new civilizations, dreaming of a future that seemed brighter than ever before. The torch that had been passed to humanity was now shared with all the species of the galaxy. The mission that had started with a desperate message from a dying race had become something greater, a promise that life would always find a way to protect itself, to grow, to reach for the stars. The future belonged to all of them.